I'm Catherine, 26 female. For the last 8 years, my life has been a blur of textbooks, late-night lab sessions, and the quiet hum of high-tech machinery. I live in a small apartment near campus, a place that feels more like a study carrel than a home, but it has been my sanctuary. I was on the verge of completing my Ph.D. in biomedical engineering, a monumental achievement that felt like the culmination of my entire life's focus. But this story isn't just about a degree. It's about what happened when I expected the people who should have been my biggest supporters to finally show up, and they chose a weekend in Vegas instead. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The story of my family is a story of orbits. My parents, Helen and Richard, were the sun, a dazzling, self-important star around which everything was expected to revolve. My brother, Leo, was Mercury, the closest planet, basking in their immediate warmth, forever their golden child. And I was Pluto, a distant, icy rock, acknowledged only when it was convenient or when my trajectory could somehow reflect well on the central star. It had always been this way. My mother, an interior designer, valued aesthetics and appearances above all else. My father, a financial advisor, measured worth in dollars and social standing. Leo, a personal trainer whose business was more about posting gym selfies than actually training clients, fit perfectly into their world of superficial success. He was charming, handsome, and effortlessly commanded their attention. I, on the other hand, was the quiet, studious one. My passions weren't photogenic. You can't capture the elegance of a perfectly executed gene-splicing experiment in an Instagram post. You can't filter the quiet thrill of a breakthrough in cellular regeneration to make it palatable for a dinner party conversation. My world was one of microscopes, data analysis, and complex theories that made my family's eyes glaze over. They supported me in the way one supports a distant cousin's strange hobby, with vague, encouraging noises but no genuine interest or investment. They paid for my undergraduate tuition, a fact my father never let me forget, framing it as a generous investment in a venture he clearly didn't understand. My doctoral program, however, I funded myself through scholarships, grants, and grueling hours as a teaching assistant. That independence was a source of private pride and public dismissal. To them, it just meant I was holed up in a lab somewhere, not participating in the grand performance of their family life. Leo's milestones were family holidays. His high school graduation party was a catered affair that cost more than my first car. His business launch, which consisted of a new website and branded water bottles, was celebrated with a champagne toast at the city's most exclusive restaurant. When he ran a half marathon, my parents flew to another state to hold up a "Go, Leo" sign at the finish line. When I won the National Science Foundation Fellowship that secured my Ph.D. funding, my mother's response over the phone was, "Oh, that's nice, dear. Say, can you be home next weekend? We're having a little get-together for Leo. He just got a new corporate client." The graduation I was facing wasn't just any graduation. It was the finish line of an 8-year marathon of relentless work. I was about to become Dr. Catherine Hayes, and not only that, I had been selected to receive the Dean's Medal for Excellence, an honor bestowed upon one graduating Ph.D. student per year for outstanding research and contribution to their field. My work on developing a novel scaffolding for tissue regeneration had been published in a prestigious journal and was already being cited by researchers globally. It was, by any objective measure, a big deal. My mentor, Professor Finch, the Dean of Engineering himself, had told me it was one of the most promising dissertations he had seen in a decade. This time I thought it would be different. This wasn't a science fair or a Dean's List certificate. This was the pinnacle of my academic life. This was something they could surely understand, something they could be proud of. I practiced how I would tell them, wanting to convey the weight of the moment. I decided a text to the family group chat was the most efficient, if sterile, way to ensure everyone saw it at the same time. On a Tuesday afternoon, my fingers hovered over the screen of my phone. The group was named Hayes Family. but it mostly served as a platform for my mom to post photos of her latest design projects and for Leo to share his gym videos. Taking a deep breath, I typed the message that I hoped would finally make me feel like a part of the solar system. "Hey everyone," I wrote. "Just wanted to let you all know that my Ph.D. graduation ceremony is this Saturday at 2 p.m. I'm also being presented with an award, so it would mean the world to me if you could make it." I hit send, my heart pounding with a familiar, foolish hope. The 3 little dots appeared under Leo's name almost immediately. My breath caught in my throat. This was it. The response that popped up a moment later felt like a physical blow. "Ah, can't. We'll be in Vegas for the weekend. Maybe next time. We'll." Before I could even process the casual cruelty of his reply, a new message from my mother appeared. "Catherine, Leo just finalized the trip. Don't make this about you." I stared at the screen, the words blurring together. Don't make this about you. My graduation. The culmination of nearly a decade of my life. An event that was, by its very definition, about me. The casual dismissal, the reflexive prioritization of Leo's whims over my once-in-a-lifetime achievement, it was so familiar it was nauseating. It was every skipped parent-teacher conference, every forgotten piano recital, every major achievement met with a distracted, "That's nice," rolled into one brutal, final confirmation. They weren't just choosing Vegas over me, they were telling me that my biggest moment was an inconvenience to their leisure. My father remained silent, his lack of response a tacit endorsement of their decision. He was a man who avoided conflict, and in our family, conflict meant disagreeing with Helen or disappointing Leo. For years, I had made excuses for them. They were busy. They didn't understand my work. They loved me in their own way. But looking at those texts, the flimsy scaffolding of my justifications collapsed. There was no misunderstanding. It was a choice, and they had chosen. A cold, heavy certainty settled in my chest. I typed back 2 words, each one a nail in the coffin of my hope. "Understood," then I muted the group chat forever. The word "understood" hung in the digital air of the group chat, a final, clipped acknowledgement of a reality I could no longer deny. There were no follow-up questions, no apologies, no feigned attempts at regret from them. Just silence. It was as if my single-word reply had granted them absolution, allowing them to proceed with their plans, guilt-free. The hours after that text exchange were a hollow, echoing void. I sat in my small apartment, the piles of books and research papers that had been my trusted companions for years now, feeling like monuments to a grand, foolish miscalculation. I had believed, deep down, that achievement was the currency of love in my family. I thought if I just worked hard enough, accomplished something significant enough, I could finally earn the validation that flowed so freely toward Leo. That evening, I called my mentor, Professor Alastair Finch. He had been more of a father to me over the past few years than my own. A sharp, kind man with a brilliant mind and a surprising amount of empathy, he had guided my research, celebrated my breakthroughs, and pushed me when my confidence wavered. I tried to keep my voice steady, telling him I needed to confirm the details for the award presentation. "Catherine, are you all right?" he asked, his perception cutting through my facade. "You sound off." The simple question, laced with genuine concern, was enough to make my composure crumble. The story of the text messages tumbled out, each word feeling both petty and profound. I felt childish complaining about my family skipping my graduation, but the pain was sharp and real. He listened patiently without interruption. When I finished, there was a brief pause on the line. "Catherine," he said, his voice firm but gentle, "their absence is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their character. What you have accomplished is extraordinary. Do not let their short-sightedness diminish this moment for you." His words were a balm, but they also ignited a flicker of something else, a cold, hard anger. He was right. Why was I the one feeling small? Why was I sitting in my apartment mourning the loss of their approval when they were the ones who were so glaringly in the wrong? Professor Finch then added something that shifted my perspective entirely. "As for the award," he said, "it comes with a significant prize, you know. $10,000, sponsored by a major biotech firm. I assumed you knew." I hadn't. In the flurry of notifications and academic emails, I'd focused on the honor, not the logistics. $10,000. It was a substantial amount of money, more than I'd ever had in my bank account at one time. It was meant to be a prize to help a promising young scientist launch their career. The irony was bitter. My family was going to Vegas to gamble away who knows how much money, casually dismissing an event where I was being awarded a small fortune for my hard work. Suddenly, the Vegas trip didn't just feel like neglect, it felt like a grotesque parody of my success. They were chasing Luck W. While I was being rewarded for dedication. They were tossing money at a card table while a corporation was investing in my future. The next day, a morbid curiosity took hold of me. What was so important in Vegas that it warranted this level of familial betrayal? Leo wasn't a professional poker player. They weren't high rollers. I scrolled through Leo's social media. His feed was the usual curated display of gym workouts and motivational quotes plastered over photos of his abs. Then I saw it. A post from a week ago. It was a picture of him shaking hands with a slick-looking man in a suit, a banner for a National Poker Tour Amateur Championship visible in the background. The caption read, "Taking my shot at the big leagues. Vegas, I'm coming for you. #go big or go home poker life all in." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a casual vacation. This was for one of Leo's get-rich-quick schemes. He had convinced them that he had a real chance at winning a poker tournament. I thought back to conversations I'd half heard over the years. My father, Richard, talking about setting up a small investment fund for Leo. My mother, Helen, mentioning that they were helping Leo with some initial capital for his ventures. I had always assumed it was a few $1,000s here and there to support his personal training business. But a poker tournament? That required a buy-in. A significant one. And if my family was flying to Vegas to cheer him on, it meant they were financially and emotionally invested in this fantasy. They weren't just supporting his hobby, they were bankrolling his gamble. The casual cruelty of their texts took on a new, darker meaning. It wasn't just a preference for a vacation, it was a financial calculation. My graduation, my award, my 8 years of sacrifice, all of it was weighed against the slim, glittery chance that Leo might hit a jackpot, and my moment had lost. The rejection felt deeper now, not just a matter of hurt feelings, but a fundamental statement of my value in the family's portfolio. I was the safe, boring stock that paid out small, reliable dividends. Leo was the high-risk, high-reward bet they were willing to stake everything on, and I was about to find out just how much they had staked. The anger that had been simmering within me began to crystallize into a cold, clear resolve. The hurt was still there, a dull ache behind my ribs, but it was now overlaid with a powerful, motivating curiosity. This wasn't just about a missed graduation anymore. It was about a pattern of behavior, a system of values so skewed that it defied logic. I needed to understand the full scope of it. I needed to see the whole picture, not just the dismissive texts that were a symptom of a much deeper disease. My academic training kicked in. I was a researcher, after all. My entire career was built on gathering data, identifying patterns, and drawing evidence-based conclusions. It was time to apply those skills to my own life. My first step was to look into the poker tournament Leo was so excited about. A quick search for the National Poker Tour Amateur Championship brought up their official website. It was flashy, full of promises of fame and fortune. I found the page for the Las Vegas event he was attending. The main tournament had a buy-in of $5,000, not an insignificant sum, but perhaps manageable for my father. But then I saw the side events, the high roller tables for serious contenders. The buy-in for those started at $25,000. Leo's "Go big or go home" caption suddenly seemed much more ominous. Was he really that reckless? Were my parents really that foolish? I started thinking about my father's finances. Richard was a financial advisor, but he'd always been more of a salesman than a strategist. He managed the retirement accounts of middle-class families, promoting safe, low-yield mutual funds. He drove a sensible sedan and preached the gospel of fiscal conservatism. The idea of him bankrolling a high-stakes poker run seemed wildly out of character. Yet, the evidence pointed to a deep financial investment in Leo's schemes. Where was the money coming from? The answer, I suspected, lay in something I hadn't thought about in years: my college fund. When my grandmother passed away, she had left a modest inheritance specifically for my and Leo's education. It was managed by my father in a trust. It had paid for my undergraduate degree, and I was told what was left had been rolled into a low-risk investment for my future, something I could use as a down payment on a house one day. I had the account details filed away somewhere, a relic from a time when I still trusted my father's guidance implicitly. I hadn't looked at the statements in years, content in the knowledge that he, a professional, was handling it. It took me an hour of digging through old file boxes in my closet, sneezing from the dust, but I finally found it: a thin folder labeled Catherine Education Trust. The last paper statement W. As from 5 years ago, it showed a healthy balance of just over $75,000. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was more than I realized. That money, quietly growing, had been my safety net, the one tangible piece of security my family had provided for me. With trembling hands, I went to the investment firm's website and used the old account number to try and recover my online access. After a few security questions, my mother's maiden name, my childhood street, I was in. I clicked on View Account Summary, and the page loaded. I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat. The balance wasn't $75,000. It wasn't even $50,000. The current total was $4,821.14. For a moment, I was sure it was a mistake, a glitch in the system. I frantically clicked on the transaction history, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. The page populated with a list of withdrawals, a cascade of debits that bled my future dry. The first large one was 2 years ago, $20,000. The description read, "Intra-account transfer to L. Hayes Investment Fund." L. Hayes, Leo Hayes. Another one 6 months after that, $15,000. Then another, and another. A series of smaller, consistent withdrawals of $2,000 or $3,000, almost like an allowance. The most recent was a massive one from just 2 weeks ago, $30,000. The date corresponded exactly with the week Leo announced his Vegas trip. It all clicked into place with sickening clarity. My father hadn't just been helping Leo. He had been systematically draining my inheritance to fund his son's parade of failed ventures and high-risk gambles. The L. Hayes Investment Fund was a sham, a name he gave the account he used to funnel my money to my brother. The real estate seminars, the dropshipping business that never shipped anything, the influencer lifestyle, I had paid for all of it. And now I had paid for his seat at a poker table in Las Vegas. This was the real reason they couldn't come to my graduation. It wasn't just a scheduling conflict. It was shame. It was guilt. How could they face me, the daughter whose future they had stolen, on the very day I was being celebrated for building one on my own? Their trip to Vegas wasn't just to cheer Leo on. It was to oversee their last, most desperate bet. They were hoping he would win big so they could quietly replace the money they had taken, hoping I would never find out. The betrayal was so profound, so breathtakingly audacious. It transcended anger and settled into a strange, terrifying calm. They hadn't just rejected me. They had robbed me. And they were about to find out that a biomedical engineer, a person trained in precision, evidence, and consequences, was not someone you could steal from without a cost. The initial shock gave way to an icy, analytical focus. The emotional pain was still there, a hot, searing core inside me, but my mind was working with the detached precision of a surgeon. I had the what. They had stolen my inheritance. Now I needed the how and the why. I needed irrefutable proof, a chain of evidence so strong that it couldn't be dismissed or explained away. My father was a financial advisor. He would have covered his tracks, or so he thought. He would rely on jargon, on my perceived ignorance of his world, to create a fog of confusion if I ever confronted him. I wouldn't allow that. I would meet him on his own turf, armed with his own data. I spent the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday, in a fugue state of intense investigation. I downloaded every single statement from my trust account, going back 10 years. I created a spreadsheet, just as I would for a research project. I logged every withdrawal, date, amount, and description. The pattern was damning. The large withdrawals perfectly coincided with the known launch dates of Leo's failed businesses. There was $20,000 withdrawn the week he decided to become a day trader, a venture that lasted all of 3 months. There was $15,000 the month he tried to launch a line of organic dog treats, which failed when he discovered he was allergic to half the ingredients. The trail of my stolen money was a map of my brother's incompetence. But I needed to connect the dots more directly. The intra-account transfer to L. Hayes Investment Fund was the key. My father had set up a separate account under Leo's name and simply moved the money over. It was brazen. He likely had power of attorney over the trust and thought he could operate with impunity. I needed access to that account's records to see where the money went after it was transferred. That was the missing link. Of course, I had no legal right to access my brother's private investment account. This is where I had to get creative. I thought about my father's habits. He was meticulous but also lazy. He reused passwords. He had a favorite security question: "What is the name of your first pet?" I knew the answer, of course. It was a golden retriever named Buddy. It was a long shot, but it was the only one I had. On Friday afternoon, I went to the same investment firm's website. I clicked on Forgot Username and entered Leo's email address, which I knew from his business website. A username was sent to him. This was the risky part. I was counting on him being too distracted by the glitz of Vegas to notice a single, boring email from a financial company. Next, I clicked Forgot Password. I entered Leo's newly recovered username. The system prompted me for the security question. My heart pounded as I typed it in. "What is the name of your first pet?" I typed Buddy and hit enter. Access granted. I was in. My hands were shaking as I navigated to the transaction history of the L. Hayes Investment Fund. It was a bloodbath. My meticulously saved inheritance had been treated like a personal slush fund. There were thousands spent on lavish dinners, designer clothes, and weekend trips. There were cash withdrawals from ATMs near high-end bars. It was a chronicle of my brother's irresponsible lifestyle, funded by my grandmother's legacy and my father's deceit. And then I saw the big one. The final link in the chain. 3 weeks ago, a wire transfer of $30,000. The recipient? The Bellagio Hotel and Casino, Las Vegas. The memo line read, "NPT Championship Seat." Not only had they used my money for the buy-in, but it looked like they'd also covered travel and expenses. But there was something else, something even more sinister. As I scrolled through the older transactions, I found a series of large payments to my father's personal credit card. They weren't just funding Leo. My father was skimming off the top for himself. He was paying off his own debts with my money while simultaneously funneling it to my brother. And my mother? I found several transfers to a high-end furniture supplier she used for her interior design business, marked as client deposit. They were all in on it. This was a family conspiracy. They had systematically plundered my future to prop up their fragile, glittering facade. The image of the 3 of them in Vegas, cheering on Leo as he gambled away the last of my trust fund, flashed in my mind. The injustice was so staggering it made me feel dizzy. I saved everything. I took screenshots. I downloaded every statement, every transaction record from both my account and Leo's. I compiled it all into a single, password-protected folder on a thumb drive. It was a perfect, undeniable record of their betrayal. The graduation ceremony was tomorrow. They would be at a poker table, praying for a lucky hand to erase their crimes. They had no idea that I was holding a royal flush of my own, and I wasn't just going to win the hand. I was going to burn the whole casino down. Saturday arrived, the day of my graduation. I woke up feeling a strange and powerful serenity. The grief was gone, replaced by a steely sense of purpose. I laid out my academic regalia, the long black gown, the doctoral hood trimmed in the brilliant orange of the engineering school. It felt like armor. As I got ready, I didn't think about my family. I thought about my work. I thought about the years of effort, the frustrations, the eureka moments. I thought about the lives that could one day be changed because of the science I had helped to advance. This day was mine. I had earned it, and I refused to let their ghosts haunt my celebration. I had a plan, one that had been meticulously formulated in the late hours of the previous night. It was a two-pronged attack. The first part was about securing my future. The second was about ensuring they faced the consequences of their past. Before heading to the university, I made a crucial stop. I went to the offices of the largest and most respected law firm in the city, one that specialized in financial fraud and estate litigation. I had booked an emergency consultation the day before, explaining that I had time-sensitive evidence of fiduciary misconduct. I met with a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer named Ms. Davenport. I laid out the entire story, presenting her with the thumb drive containing all the financial records. She listened intently, her expression growing more severe with each document I showed her. "This is egregious," she said, looking up from her laptop. "Your father, as trustee, had a sacred duty to act in your best interest. What he did wasn't just a betrayal of your trust, it's a clear violation of fiduciary law. This is theft, plain and simple." She explained the legal path forward, a lawsuit to recover the stolen funds, plus damages. Given the evidence, she was confident not only that we would win, but that the court would likely order them to pay my legal fees as well. She also mentioned the possibility of pressing criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement. The weight of her words was immense. This wasn't just a family squabble, it was a serious crime. I gave her the go-ahead to draft the initial demand letter to be sent on Monday morning. Part 1 of the plan was in motion. I arrived at the university auditorium feeling lighter than I had in years. The air was buzzing with excitement. Graduates in their caps and gowns were hugging their families, taking pictures, their faces alight with pride and relief. For a fleeting moment, a pang of sadness hit me. I saw a father adjusting his daughter's doctoral hood, a mother weeping with joy. This was the moment my family had thrown away for a poker game. But then I saw Professor Finch waiting for me by the entrance, a warm smile on his face. "Dr. Hayes," he said, emphasizing the title, "you look ready to take on the world." His presence, his unwavering support, was a powerful reminder that family is not always about blood, it's about who shows up. The ceremony was long, a sea of names and handshakes, but I was completely present. When my name was called to receive my diploma, the applause from my cohort and professors was thunderous. I walked across the stage, shook the university president's hand, and felt a surge of pure, unadulterated pride. This was real. This couldn't be gambled away or stolen. Then came the award presentation. Professor Finch took the podium. "Each year," he began, "the faculty selects one graduating doctoral candidate for the Dean's Medal for Excellence. This award recognizes not only outstanding research, but also character, perseverance, and the potential to make a significant impact on the world." He spoke about my research for a few minutes, explaining its complexities in a way that the entire audience could understand. He talked about its potential in regenerative medicine, in healing injuries that were once thought to be permanent. I could feel the entire auditorium listening, captivated. This was my work. This was my story. But this year's recipient, he continued, going slightly off script, has demonstrated a level of resilience that goes far beyond the laboratory. She has faced and overcome personal challenges with a grace and determination that is truly inspiring. His eyes met mine in the front row, and I knew he was talking about more than just academic hurdles. It is my profound honor to present the Dean's Medal and the accompanying $10,000 career grant from OmniGen Biosolutions to Dr. Catherine Hayes. The applause was deafening. As I walked to the stage, something occurred to me. OmniGen, I knew that name. They were a publicly traded biotech giant, a leader in the industry. And like most major corporations, their news, their successes, their philanthropic endeavors, they were often covered by the business media. An idea, brilliant and audacious, sparked in my mind. The stage was set. Now it was time to make sure the right audience was watching. After the ceremony, there was a reception for the award winners and special guests. It was a blur of congratulations, handshakes, and champagne. Amid the celebration, I sought out the representative from OmniGen Biosolutions who had presented the novelty oversized check for the photos. Her name was Ms. Albright, a polished woman from their public relations department. I thanked her profusely for the company's generosity and the honor. Then, I put the final piece of my plan into action. Ms. Albright, I began, my voice steady and confident. My research was profoundly inspired by my grandmother, who always championed education. This award isn't just for me, it's a continuation of her legacy. A legacy that my entire family, especially my father, Richard Hayes, a financial advisor, has always taught me to value. I was laying the groundwork, weaving a narrative. "That's wonderful to hear," she said, smiling warmly. "It's exactly the kind of story we love to champion." To that end, I continued, I was hoping OmniGen might be willing to feature this on a slightly larger scale. My father and my brother, Leo Hayes, are actually in Las Vegas this weekend for a major event. They were so heartbroken to miss this, but they're chasing a dream of their own. I think a story about a family that values both academic excellence and bold ambition would be incredibly compelling. A father who manages wealth, a daughter who creates it through science, and a son who's not afraid to take risks. I was selling them a story, a wholesome, all-American narrative that was the complete opposite of the truth. I knew a PR person's ears would perk up at the buzzwords: family, legacy, ambition. Ms. Albright's eyes lit up. "That's a fantastic angle. We have a great relationship with the local news affiliate here, Channel 8. They love human interest stories tied to corporate sponsorship. Let me make a call. A quick interview with you tonight on the evening news, mentioning your family's support. It would be great press for us and a lovely tribute for them to see." It was more than I could have hoped for. "They'd be watching, I'm sure," I said, the double meaning hanging in the air, unheard by anyone but me. "They're staying at the Bellagio." A few hours later, I was City. NG in the Channel 8 news studio, the bright lights hot on my face. The interview was scheduled for the 6 p.m. broadcast, a primetime slot. I knew my family would be deep into the poker tournament by then, likely watching the news on the TVs scattered around the casino floor between hands. The reporter, a friendly woman named Sarah, prepped me on the questions. They were simple, focused on my research and the award, but I knew my moment would come. The interview began. I spoke eloquently about my work, about tissue regeneration and its future applications. I thanked Professor Finch and the university. Then, Sarah led me right where I wanted to go. "And we hear your family are big supporters, though they couldn't be here for a very exciting reason of their own," she said, reading from the notes provided by OmniGen's PR team. This was it. I looked directly into the camera, imagining my parents and brother seeing my face on a screen in the middle of a casino. "Yes, that's right," I said, my voice filled with a carefully crafted warmth. "My father, Richard Hayes, a financial advisor with Sterling Wealth Management, and my mother, Helen, have always taught me the importance of building a secure future. I owe so much to the educational trust they set up for me. It's the foundation upon which I built this achievement." I let that hang in the air for a second. "And they've offered the same incredible support to my brother, Leo. They're actually with him in Las Vegas right now, at the Bellagio, cheering him on in the National Poker Tour Championship. They invested heavily in his dream, and I hope he wins big for them. They deserve a return on their investment." I continued, my words a cascade of sweet poison. "I know they were devastated to miss this, but I want to say to them directly, Mom, Dad, Leo, I understand. I know you've sunk everything into this Vegas trip, and I mean everything. The money you invested in Leo, the funds from my educational trust, I know you were hoping for a big win to make it all right, but you don't have to worry." I leaned forward slightly, my expression a perfect blend of compassion and strength. "Because of your belief in me, OmniGen has given me this $10,000 grant, and I've decided to use it to hire the best financial fraud litigation team in the state to help our family sort out these complex investments. We're going to recover every single dollar, so you can relax and enjoy your game. Help is on the way." I smiled, a beatific, serene smile. I had done it. On live television, I had exposed them. I hadn't yelled or accused. I had thanked them. I had forgiven them. I had wrapped their crimes in the language of love and support, making the truth 1,000 times more devastating. In the middle of a casino, surrounded by their peers and the evidence of their desperation, my family would have seen their quiet, forgotten daughter calmly and publicly detonate their lives. The news of a local girl winning a science award had just become the story of a prominent financial advisor embezzling his daughter's trust fund to bankroll his son's poker habit. Vegas was the last thing on their minds now. The immediate aftermath of the broadcast was a deafening silence from my family's end, but a thunderous explosion everywhere else. My phone, which I had purposefully left on, began to vibrate uncontrollably. Messages poured in from extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins who had seen the news. Their texts were a mixture of confusion, shock, and dawning horror. "Catherine, what was that about your trust fund?" one aunt wrote. "Is your father in some kind of trouble?" Professor Finch called, his voice a mixture of awe and concern. "Catherine, that was a masterclass in strategic communication," he said. "Are you prepared for what comes next?" I told him I was. The real show, however, was happening in Las Vegas. I didn't have to imagine it, because I heard about it later from a distant cousin who worked at another casino on the Strip and heard the gossip within an hour. According to the story, a pit boss at the Bellagio had to call security to the poker room. My father, Richard, had apparently seen the broadcast on one of the overhead screens. His face went sheet white. He stood up so abruptly he knocked his chair over, mumbled something to my mother, and made a frantic call. Leo, pulled away from his table mid-hand, was seen having a furious, whispered argument with both of them near the casino bar. The dream of a big win had evaporated, replaced by the humiliating, public nightmare of exposure. They checked out of the hotel before dawn the next morning, leaving behind whatever was left of the tournament buy-in. Their grand gamble was a bust, in every conceivable way. On Monday morning, as promised, Ms. Davenport's law firm sent the demand letter via courier to my parents' home and my father's office. It was a formal, terrifying document that laid out the full extent of their fraud, citing the exact amounts and dates of the illegal transfers. It gave them 30 days to present a plan for the full restitution of the stolen $70,178.86, plus interest and legal fees, or face a lawsuit and a formal report to the State Financial Regulatory Board and the district attorney. The threat of professional ruin and potential criminal charges was now very real. My father's employer, Sterling Wealth Management, launched an immediate internal investigation. A financial advisor being publicly accused of embezzling from his own daughter's trust fund was a PR catastrophe they couldn't tolerate. Within a week, Richard was suspended, his licenses under review. His clients, many of whom were friends and neighbors, began pulling their accounts. The man who had built his identity on the image of fiscal prudence and trustworthiness was ruined. My mother, Helen, whose business relied on her social connections and reputation among the city's elite, found her calls going unanswered. Her clients canceled contracts, not wanting to be associated with a family embroiled in such a sordid, public scandal. The beautiful facade they had spent their lives constructing had crumbled to dust overnight. The first and only direct communication I received from them came a week after the broadcast. It was a text from my mother. "How could you do this to your family?" It read. The lack of self-awareness was almost comical. I typed out a long, angry reply detailing every silent hurt, every dismissal, every dollar they had stolen from me. I listed the sacrifices I had made while they funded Leo's whims. Then, I deleted it all. They didn't deserve my anger. They didn't deserve any more of my energy. Instead, I replied with a single sentence. "You are not my family." I blocked her number, then my father's, then Leo's. It was a final, quiet severing of a bond that had been broken long ago. Months have passed since that day. The lawsuit was settled out of court. Faced with irrefutable evidence and the threat of prison, my parents agreed to everything. They had to sell their large, beautifully designed house, my mother's proudest creation, to pay me back. My father lost his job and his license permanently. The last I heard, they were living in a small rental apartment across town. Leo, stripped of his parental funding, had to get a real job. He works stocking shelves at a grocery store. As for me, I am Dr. Catherine Hayes. I used the recovered money and the grant from OmniGen not for a down payment on a house, but as seed funding to launch my own small research company with 2 colleagues from graduate school. We're continuing the work I started in my Ph.D., and we've already secured our first round of venture capital funding. My life is full. It's filled with challenging work, supportive friends, and the quiet, steady pride of building something real and meaningful. I have a new family, one forged in the lab and cemented by mutual respect and shared passion. Sometimes I wonder if my parents or brother ever feel remorse. But honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. They made their bet and they lost. I made mine on myself, and my payout is a future they can never touch.